Hello, I'm Jeff Cavins. Today we're going to look into the scriptures for the fifth Sunday in Easter. As we look into the text today, we see that Jesus is teaching his disciples a new commandment. As disciples, they have made the commitment to follow him day in and day out. Their goal is to listen to him, sit at his feet, pick up on his worldview, treat people the way he treats people, to love the world the way he loves the world, and to become a complete offering. In the middle of this, he says to them, there's a new commandment, and I'm giving you this new commandment. And the new commandment, he says, that I give to you is that you would love one another, even as I have loved you, that you also love one another. And then he goes on and he says, by this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. That, my friend, is a heavy message. Jesus is saying to his disciples that I am going to give the world the freedom to observe your life and the way you treat one another, the way you respond to one another, and the way you give to one another and sacrifice, and they can come to a conclusion, and that is whether you're my disciples or not. C.S. Lewis once called this really the great gamble. What a chance God took to put his kingdom on the line and to allow the world to come to a conclusion based on the way we treat one another. When I think about this, I think about the relationships that we have. Do we demonstrate the love of God in our families? The way we treat our spouse in front of our children, our neighbors, do we really demonstrate the love of God? Would all of our neighbors, when talking about us, say, that person is a disciple of Jesus? What about your colleagues at work? What about relatives at family reunions or major holidays? Do they leave that holiday thinking, there is a disciple of the Lord? There is someone who truly loves. It's sacrificial, and this is what we're called to, is to really give our lives to Christ in such a way that we really proclaim a message. And our culture is in such need of it. Think about it for a moment. Jesus is commanding us to love. And when I hear that, I think to myself right away, can you really command someone to love? What if I don't feel like loving someone? Or if somebody has offended me and I don't feel like loving them? You see, the type of love that God calls us to walk in is not a love that is dependent upon emotion. It's not a love that really feeds our feelings. It's a verb. You love, you sacrifice, you give your life for others. And I might add this, it's an eternal love, not just a temporary thing. You prefer other people for their eternal well-being. Speaking of eternity, the book of Revelation has a lot to say about the future. And in the book of Revelation, in our readings this week, it tells us that John says, I saw a new heaven and I saw a new earth. And he goes on and says, I saw a new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride, adorned for her husband. That's us. We're the church. We're the bride, adorned in white, which Scripture often alludes to that is the works that we do and the way we treat one another. He goes on in the book of Revelation and says, behold, the dwelling of God is with men. He will dwell with them, and they shall be his people. I want to encourage you today, in today's readings, that we as Christians and disciples, followers of Christ, have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to show the world who Christ really is. And the easiest way, and the most frequent way, is the way we treat one another. I could say this. You are God's billboard. You are his commercial. Walking down the street, you're a living commercial. And if you've blown it in your relationship with others, go back to the Lord, receive that forgiveness, and go and love once again.